Good evening, everyone. See the first question for the day. The first ever SARC disaster management exercise named SADMEX was recently hosted by India, whose theme was One SARC, One Response. Discuss the need for cooperation among SARC countries and for disaster risk reduction. How can India contribute to the same? So see the important terminologies: SADMEX, okay, hosted by India, whose theme was One SARC, One Response. Discuss the need for cooperation among SARC countries for disaster risk reduction. How can India contribute to the same? So there are two aspects of the question. One is the need for cooperation among SARC countries for disaster risk reduction, and what is the contribution of India in this particular exercise. So give me the outline or the framework for the question. Good. So obviously you need to write, what is this need for cooperation among SARC countries? This is the first aspect of the question. And the second aspect of the question is the India's contribution, means how can India contribute is the question. It's not about already what India has contributed. So you can mention that in some part of your answer and then give steps for in what way or in how possible ways can India contribute for this particular disaster risk reduction in the SARC areas. So you can just give the basic introduction of SARC in your introduction, like, it's a South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation, and it is mainly for the South Asian countries. And then the recent SADMEX, which is a disaster management exercise, is a very welcoming step which can strengthen the SARC to further cooperate in multiple areas, because we all know that SARC is presently not so active and it is dormant because of various issues, especially between the Pakistan and India. Okay, both the neighbors are not in good terms with regard to maintaining their relationship, and hence SARC has become little bit dormant in the present context. So you can say that by coming together with regard to the disaster management or climate change mitigation, there are many other things which are not directly politically related, because a disaster, if it strikes in Pakistan, Afghanistan or India, it is not for anyone's wanting. No one wants that someone should get affected by floods or earthquake in Pakistan or something like that. So politically we are not in good terms, that is a different thing, but civilian wise we don't have any kind of hatred towards the civilians of the Pakistan. And hence these are the forums where we can actually coordinate better and come together so that the overall bonding of the SARC can grow. So you can just try to shorten and write it in your introduction. And now coming straight to the core demand of the question, discuss the need for cooperation among SARC countries for disaster risk reduction. So what are the various reasons for having the need? One is because all of them are climatically or geographically located in the same Indian subcontinent region. That is the first thing. And then they're equally prone to the vagaries of monsoon, be it regard to the floods, be it regard to the droughts, be it regard to the cyclones. All these nations of SARC are equally prone to the vagaries of monsoon. Okay. And then the growing climate change is becoming a very big issue across the globe, and Indian subcontinent, basically all these countries are once upon a time part of Indian subcontinent, and even today they are generally referred to as Indian subcontinent. So this Indian subcontinent and its related countries are very vulnerable to the climate change, and also disasters when they strike these countries, most of these countries are either developing countries or underdeveloped countries. Please remember that they are not sophisticated countries who have very good extensive administrative or other capabilities to fight disasters. Most of these are developing countries or sometimes underdeveloped countries, and then most of these countries are agricultural economy oriented countries. Okay, and any disaster like drought or flood is going to impact them very badly with regard to their economy. Okay, and then most of these countries are in the vicinity of Indian Ocean and especially the Bay of Bengal, and hence a disaster or a cyclone in Bay of Bengal is going to impact them very badly. Okay, these are some of the reasons which are required for SAARC countries to come together to fight the disaster risk reduction. Okay, because a disaster striking them is going to have significant risk. So how can India contribute to this particular disaster risk reduction is the second part of the question. So what already India has cooperated. India has a lot of experience in fighting the disasters. Okay, so India has a lot of experience in fighting disasters. In the last class, we have seen from 1999 till 2013 how far India has come in fighting the disasters. Okay, so India can share its experience of fighting the disasters, especially disasters like cyclones and droughts, how India has been able to manage. And India has a special force called NDRF under the NDMA Act 2005, and it can help other countries formulate such act where they can have exclusive forces or mechanism for fighting the disasters. And India has been able to use technology successfully and integrate it with the disaster management. So hence, when India can use such technology in its fight towards the disaster, it can encourage its fellow nations, especially the neighbors through SAARC, to use similar technology in fighting the disasters. And then India has an exclusive satellite system called IRNSS. And it can give access to the SAARC nations for tracking and remote sensing the disasters so that they can use the technological prowess of India and can successfully mitigate the disasters at their end. And further, India can also directly help neighbors during the disasters. You can give the example of how India acted in the case of Nepal. When there was an earthquake, India was the first country to send its air force and the disaster management personnel to address the situation in Nepal. And then India is a signatory of the Sendai framework of 2015 to 2030, and it is very much clear as to how it can approach the disaster through the PMRR approach, prevention, mitigation, response and recovery approach. And India has already almost mastered this particular approach in most of its disasters, and it can help with the SAARC disaster management. In the conclusion, you can mention India being the most prominent country in the SAARC union or the association has to take the lead to bring together various countries, especially in fighting the disaster, because any disaster striking the SAARC countries is going to impact the entire SAARC region. So the need of the hour is to sharing the expertise and the technological prowess India has got, and thereby fighting the disasters collectively. Clear?
Yes, sir.
So whose question I have to see? Whose question I wanted to see? Whose question I have now seen in the last class? Jitendra?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good introduction. Maybe you can even write, what is the need for this exercise also. Okay.
Yes, sir. I
You
can
can,
do it.
yeah, you can add those value addition points, but make sure your introduction is only this much. Okay, it should not cross this 4 or 5 lines. So as far as introduction and coming to the core demand of the question, you are right on the point. You have come to the core demand of the question immediately. That is good. And then you have mentioned climate change. Yes. Okay, post disaster. Okay, multiplied. Okay, cyclones. And you have to write that all these are on the same geographical region.
I forgot it. I'll mention it.
Where you have mentioned it?
Forgot it. I have to mention it.
You have to mention it because they are all coming under the, most of them are in the same geographical region, right? Capacity building, yes. India's contribution, past experience, very good. Encourage PMRR, yes. Provide the disaster, okay. During cyclones, promote capacity building. And India is a signatory to Sendai. You can write about the satellite system we have. All these are very important.
Yes, sir.
Yes, operations in Maldives. And then you can mention the disaster relief in Nepal, where India has been leading from the front.
Yes, sir.
Overall good answer, Jitendra. It's a very good answer, above average answer. Okay. Right.
Yes,
I
sir.
hope you have written it without seeing anything.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then I can term it as a very good answer.